Buonasera Sergio, mi
Buonasera.
senti?
Sì, ti sento forte e
Ovviamente
chiaro.
tipo si sentiva fino a un secondo fa e ora, aspetta, parla?
Pronto, pronto.
Ovviamente
Calzini.
funzionava tutto esatto. Allora, partiamo col fatto che il nostro ospite ha fatto prima un line check che è durato tipo un'ora con consigli sul marketing che era da registrarlo, no?
Scriversi tutto.
Esatto. Tra
E
l'altro
adesso forse sei morto.
adesso, esatto, perché
Non
ovviamente
risponde più.
era dalle 7:30 alle 8:30, collegato che ci ha spiegato aneddoti come quella roba che la Sabian da 3 milioni a 36 milioni.
Cose irripetibili, cose che non potremmo dire
Non
anche in
potremmo
queste...
dire, ma allora, visto che ci siamo in tema, prima che parta lui, io comunque poi ho uno scoop di cui faremo una live a parte, perché io so perché perché i Sepoltura non sono riuniti. Ieri ero a Ferrara, comunque anticipiamo un pochettino a vedermi questo festival bellissimo, ho beccato Igor e anche lì, quindi saranno tipo le live, tipo il sesto segreto di Fatima, no? Con
Esatto,
con tutti i
esatto.
vari segreti e le cose.
Caramba, che sorpresa.
Esatto. Tu come stai?
Molto bene, molto bene. Sono in un bel periodo lavorativo con Dramo e anche col gruppo, con i Dirty Shirt come sempre. Devo dire che sono arrivate oggi le tracce di chitarra, avremo Marty Friedman come ospite sul disco.
Megoglioni, complimenti.
Stamattina mi è arrivata la mail sul telefono e io come un bambino alle 6 non riuscivo più a dormire, mi sono alzato e l'ho ascoltato 75 volte e stamattina non ho fatto un cazzo.
Quindi tu
Talmente
praticamente ovvio, avevi le tracce lì che te le ascolti. No, beh, mitico, mitico. Adesso sono molto curioso. Tra l'altro ho detto che la band suonate in un sacco di posti fighi, siamo tipi presi bene, mi fa piacere.
Adesso andremo al Wacken, facciamo altri festival belli. No, è bello, è bello. Poi ci troviamo molto bene umanamente, ci insultiamo in continuazione, quindi è quello che
Allora,
conta.
guarda che dopo ieri che questo festival a Ferrara ha riacceso in me la voglia di andare ai festival, perché sai che io ho questo rapporto di amore e odio con i festival, no? Cioè, allora,
Anch'io,
se ho il VIP pass vado, perché comunque
anch'io
vado
sono uguale. Io
perché
sono
cazzo
uguale.
stare come una bestia sotto il sole e fare
L'abbiamo
una
fatto, io l'ho fatto il Gods of Metal, stando schiacciato 11 ore contro le
no,
transenne.
ma l'ho fatta anch'io, cioè, proprio perché
Adesso
le ho fatte.
non lo faccio più. Adesso se devo suonare arrivo appena posso, appena prima.
Esatto. No, capisco molto, guarda, anche io, proprio per questo motivo per me è difficile andare a un festival di altri e stare lì buttato. Invece che è successo ieri, ho fatto la cosa giusta, arrivo, braccialettino rosso, vai nel backstage, una acquetta gratis, mi
Sei
faccio
un
due chiacchiere,
fighetto.
sono lo so. Allora, mica, ragazzi, ho fatto anche, allora, da poco ho beccato un amico che mi ha detto una frase meravigliosa, cioè noi comunque il nostro debito con l'underground l'abbiamo tutti saldato, cioè perché abbiamo fatto i concerti di merda, dormendo per terra, non mangiando, guidando 12 ore per suonare davanti a una persona, abbiamo suonato in condizioni allucinanti, jet lag, quindi noi alla fine cioè alla fine cosa chiedi tu adesso? Semplicemente che se sono stanco un po' di ombra, cioè non avere un'insolazione nel
Esatto.
pomeriggio.
Io
Quindi
ti faccio solo un piccolo esempio di debito con l'underground. Tra i 20 e i 23 anni ho suonato con un gruppo si chiamavano combat folk, il genere, sai, folk, punk, e abbiamo suonato in tutti i centri sociali d'Italia e uno delle accommodations più incredibili è stato che abbiamo suonato a Vinci, il paese di Leonardo, e questo tipo ci ha detto: vi porto a dormire a casa di mio nonno che ha una villa in campagna. Ho detto: mica, finalmente un posto dove si può dormire. Ci molla lì davanti alle 2 di notte, noi non c'è la luce, torno subito, ci ha abbandonati lì, entriamo in questa casa, abbiamo dormito tutti ammassato, era novembre, nel soggiorno in una casa semi-occupata dove non c'erano i vetri alle finestre. La mattina dopo avevamo tutti la febbre.
porca
Questo
no,
era standard, eh.
no, bello, vabbè. Guarda, i cripple hanno forse una peggiore storia. Praticamente un tipo li invita a dormire in un canile. E gli aveva messo la tenda in mezzo a una gabbia dei cani che avevano cagato tutto. Poi i cani avevano messo in un'altra gabbia, però i cani avevano cagato tutto intorno alla tenda. E lui, prego, dormite qua. Poesia, cioè, infatti poi si erano arrabbiati tipi perché dicevano che i cripple avevano tradito il giro punk.
Certo.
Loro dicono quella cosa lì è stata la goccia che ha fatto traboccare il vaso.
Certo, certo. Beh, noi con gli Aghini abbiamo una volta ci hanno messo a dormire al mattatoio del Testaccio a Roma, per terra, in un mattatoio. Il materasso erano i manifesti non utilizzati della campagna elettorale di Bertinotti. E io la mattina mi sono svegliato, sopra di me avevo tutti i ganci dove si appendevano le bestie. Quella è stata la mia visuale.
Vabbè, guarda,
Parliamo
io ho
di
fatto
cose
anche io ho dormito, vabbè, io ho dormito tipo nel mitico l'autorimessa con le macchine distrutte, all'epoca dei Causeway, col mitico lupo che girava di notte e ci voleva zannare. Praticamente
certo.
per andare a pisciare dovevi uscire dal turbus, dovevi andare fare questa tipo zona d'ombra dove c'era veramente un lupo. Tra l'altro ho fatto un video su questa storia, poi ti passo il link. Il tipo, questo batto, aveva un lupo che lui teneva durante il giorno legato e chiuso dentro una macchina, che questo lupo aveva già divorato dall'interno e la notte lo lasciava libero.
Immagino
L'abbiamo
quanto
scop
fosse felice il lupo di stare tutto il giorno chiuso in una
Bravo.
casa.
Tu pensa allora l'ultimo giorno, cioè quando abbiamo scoperto del lupo, perché praticamente il lupo nessuno c'è detto che c'era questo lupo, l'ha beccato un nostro amico. Torna ragazzi, che così, ho visto una cosa che dovete vedere. Aspetta qua bisogna, permettere proprio il lupo nella macchina Saini, perché c'è una preview qua che va vista, mentre aspettiamo, il nostro amico Saini.
Speriamo che non sia morto, davvero.
Beh, sarebbe comunque uno scoop, eccolo qua, perché la preview è meravigliosa. Aspetta, fammi vedere se riesco a allora, eccoci qua, perché ormai stiamo imparando qua a usare, allora, eccolo qua. Guarda che preview. Aspetta che cerco un pochettino di aumentare qua. Lo vedi? Aspetta, aspetta, lo vedi? Aspetta,
Quella è
aspetta,
una
eccolo.
foto vera di
No,
quel
questa è una
giorno.
foto certo. Beh, minchia! Questa è una foto vera perché quando ci ha chiamato a vedere, questo delirio, gli ho fatto: "Minchia, cioè qualcuno faccia una foto". Il tipo aveva, cioè tu pensi che tanto è arrivato il nostro ospite, cioè tu pensi che io ti dica a volte storie al limite della fantascienza, ma
No, ma
queste
sono vere.
sono vere. Il tipo aveva un cane lupo e tipo non voleva neanche darlo allo zoo, cioè proprio una bestia, chiuso lì dentro. Ma torniamo a parlare di noi, poi ne parliamo in un'altra live su questi argomenti qua. È un piacere per me introdurre quest'uomo che, se tu cerchi su Wikipedia le informazioni, è tipo, cioè, il mago del marketing, giusto? Cioè,
Assolutamente.
ha fatto delle magie incredibili. Da questo momento in poi, ragazzi, la nostra live è in inglese, quindi se avete domande però chiedete pure in chat e vi rispondiamo. Vi chiedo di fare un applauso al mitico, anzi, Sergio, fammi tu la presentazione, perché io il cognome lo dico sempre sbagliato.
Allora, abbiamo qua veramente una delle persone che è considerato uno dei luminari del marketing nel campo dell'industria musicale e delle percussioni, Wayne Blanchard.
Ciao Wayne, welcome.
Okay. Okay. We are here. When do you actually go live?
We are live.
We are live, so we are
You're
already
live?
we are live and ready to go.
Okay,
And
we'll give this a shot and see how we go. I've got some things to show you as per our previous discussion. I've got an array of things here I can show you on screen. And yes, so I will send just to Sergio, I will send a quick note and then but you can start right now actually.
okay, so first of all, Wayne, thanks a lot for being here. I read many things about you, and I'm super curious about you and your career because as a drummer, sometimes you never realize how many people are working, behind the scenes and what they do for the brands that we love. You
Yes.
told me that you were involved on many brands on many advertisements that I saw when I was a kid or when I was younger. So I'm really happy actually to have this conversation with you. So can you first tell us a bit of how many brands, which brands did you work with? You told me many big brands and what you did for them. Just to introduce
And after
yourself.
that, we will track
Well,
back and give a bit of
Hi, I'm
backstory
Wayne
about Wayne.
Blanchard. In the music industry, I've worked with Sabian, of course, for about 24 years, and Meinl. I did a couple of Meinl catalogs, helped them along, and let's see, Stone Custom Drum. I haven't really done a whole lot, like in the music side of things. There's not a whole lot to do. Yeah, so I did a couple of stick companies, Silent Sticks, but I've basically focused on consultation, non-music industry people, that sort of thing. The unfortunate thing with the music industry is that especially since COVID, actually since the financial crash of 2008, there hasn't been a whole lot going on. You'll probably recognize that. People withdrew. There's a whole lot that needs to be done. There just hasn't been a whole lot to do. And I would like to be doing more, and I look at maybe this year getting back into doing more with the music industry. I'd like to do that because I think there's been a gap of inactivity the past 10 years or so. And I think a number of the brands have slid down because they're not marketing, they're not branding. I think that they've slid down quite a bit, which enables the smaller, lesser companies to come up. So you get the commoditization of the brands where they start to lose their brand power. I think that needs some correcting now. So I don't know if that's the answer to what you're wanting, but that's the answer you're getting.
That's a great answer. Let me put you here. That's a great answer. And just quickly before Sergio asks you some questions, I saw everything going down. I just said, I remember the Frankfurt Music Messe, for example, since how it was and how it became. I remember all the advertisement, all the posters we got when we were kids, all the stuff that was done for the people, even for the customer. You will get a sticker, the poster, the advertising, and in the last couple of years, it looks like they rely everything on the artist. Like the artist has to do the pictures. The artist has to do sometimes even the branding for the company. So I look forward. They ask you basically to do everything. So now I have to do like my pictures, my videos. I have to promote the brand, and sometimes they just want to offer you a discount. So like, wait a minute, I'm gonna buy this, and it's gonna take way less work than to have an advertising today. So, Sergio, please, I'm really excited. So I'm gonna be you. I'm gonna have to come down.
Raphael, you are quite right, though. You are quite right. I agree with your observations.
We will pick it up on later.
Sergio, did you want to pop in here?
Yes. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
I can't hear Sergio.
Yeah, I can hear him.
Okay.
I hear nothing.
You don't? Okay. You just hear me?
I hear only you.
Okay, so that's weird. Sergio, sente solo me. Try again.
I don't know. My microphone seems to be working.
Nothing.
Maybe I need to leave the studio, and Raphael, you.
Okay, yeah. I will take you back. Yeah, no worry.
Yeah, and I will tell you what you ask him while I'm out. Ask Wayne about his backstory. Chiedigli di come è iniziato la sua carriera musicale, suo interesse e tutto. Ci vediamo dopo.
So my first question, Sergio's first question, and I'm going to take it from here, is like, how did you start getting involved with music? Tell us a bit about your background. How did you get interested in working with the music business?
I started in music when I was a kid, when the Beatles came out. I was living in Germany. The Beatles, the Kinks, the Small Faces, the Who, the very early Who, Spencer Davis Group, those bands, the Easy Beats. I got in there. I started as a singer in a band. I bought a Hofner violin bass. I started learning to play bass, and then I got the invitation to play drums. So I became a drummer. And I did that all through my school years. And I moved to England in 1973, and then up to Scotland in 1975, and then back to Canada in 1978, playing pro, did that. And I built a bit of a reputation for myself here in Eastern Canada because I was with one of the top bands. And that led me in a way to getting invited to work with Sabian.
Okay.
The chap who was David McAllister, who was head of marketing at Sabian, he knew of me. We met a couple of times. Jerry Brown came to town to do a clinic, the local music store, because I'd gone in and helped them with their display. They had me take Jerry out to lunch, so I took him to lunch. And that evening after his clinic, we went to dinner. and David McAllister was there because Jerry was a Sabian endorser. And David saw me chatting with Jerry. We both knew Scheveningen in the Netherlands. We'd both been there, and we could talk about music. And I met David a couple of other times. And then I was at the British Music Fair at the Olympia in London. I'd come down from Edinburgh, where I was there on holidays, and David invited me out to dinner for 2 nights running. And at the end of the second night, he said, "Would you be interested? Have you ever thought of working for Sabian?" I said, "No." I had no interest in Sabian. I was a Paiste player. I didn't like Zildjian. It was a brand thing, nothing to do with cymbals. Growing up in Europe, I was a Paiste player. Paiste and Sonar were my brands. And so he said, "Well, when you get back to Canada, give me a call." So we got together, and they had a meeting with Robert Zildjian and some of the other people in the company, and they invited me to come and work with Sabian. And that was it. Had I done, go ahead.
Yeah, how did you start with Sabian? What were you doing in the beginning?
In the beginning with Sabian, I was brought in as a marketing assistant. I don't think David knew what to do with me. He just knew that he wasn't a drummer. Okay, he'd come from McCain's Foods, so he had a very sort of corporate background. And I had done clothing retail, fashion retail, and that sort of thing when living in England and up in Scotland. So I had a retail background, I had fashion awareness, I had some brand awareness, and I'll explain that later. I'm getting some noise. Okay. Yeah. So I had some things that he didn't have, let's say. So between the two of us, I looked after the branding and the marketing, and he looked after the marketing on the business side and dealing with Robert Zildjian and dealing with the distributors and all that sort of thing. So I picked up the creative side, basically, the strategic and creative side. And that's how that got going. And they already had an agency in Toronto. I'd go up there. We ended up with another agency. They needed a lot of guidance, so I got deeply involved with them. I did all the writing. I did the design, direction, strategic stuff. Yes, and so it eventually got to the point where I could do everything myself, and that's how it ended up. I could design. I was doing all the photo shoots. I was doing all the writing. I was doing design layouts. I'll show some of these to you later. But yes, so it got to the point where I was basically a one-man agency within Sabian.
Wayne, can you hear me right now?
I can hear you now, Sergio. Welcome.
Thank you. I remember that you once told me that you have like an interesting story, or if I probably we should talk about your very first day working at Sabian.
My very first day working at Sabian, yes. So Sabian is about 1 hour drive from my home here. So a 1 hour drive, 50 minutes, yeah. I'd only ever driven up there a couple of times for the interviews. And it's a long drive.
Which year is that?
That was 1986. The end of 1986, because I started in January 1987. And so I got there, and I get out, and I walk in. It was the old Sabian factory when they only had the one building. And I walk in. It was not a nice place. It was just a noisy, smelly, dirty factory. And as soon as you walk in, on the right, there was a door leading into an office room. And just as I walk in, that door opens. There's Robert Zildjian, David McAllister, and the chap who used to be the head of finance. And they're just walking out the door as I'm walking in. And I said, "Good morning." And Robert Zildjian goes, "Yeah, you're late." I said, "I'm late. What do you mean I'm late?" I said, "It's 5 to 9. He says, "We start at 8:30. And David pipes in. He says, "I sent you a note." He said, "I sent you a letter." I said, I didn't get that letter." And they all look at each other and go, yeah, sure. So anyway, David says, "Okay, come on, I'll take you upstairs." So we walk up these little stairs, and I walk past 3 women who are heads down. They don't even look at me when I come in. There's a woman on the left in the little office, And at the end of this little aisle, there are two offices, one on the right, one on the left. I'm on the one on the left. All there is in the office is a desk with a typewriter on it. And the window has a big hole cut out of it. This is wintertime. It's got a big hole cut out of it where they must have had a vent. And it was stuffed with pink insulation. And the previous occupant of that office was a heavy smoker. So the windows were brown with nicotine. And the walls were cork and as cheap paneling. And if you went like that with your finger, it was brown from nicotine.
Wow.
I had to wash the windows 3 or 4 times, and I had to make sure I didn't touch the walls because it would just literally come off in your shirt. And I could type. I took typing as a kid in Germany. And so I'd do my own typing. And then one day I got a note from that was CC'd to me from the finance guy to Dave. He said, "David, are you aware that Wayne prepares his own correspondence?" Well, if I did it through this woman who was supposed to do that, it would take about 3 days. So yeah, I could type. None of the other guys could type. But what's interesting is when they said, David had said, "I sent you a letter," he did send me a letter. It was sitting on the desk when I got there. But the woman did it up, and I suppose she probably figured by the time she did it up, it's too late to get it to me in the post. So she just put it on my desk. But that letter was telling me to be there at 8:30 in the first morning. That was my first day at Sabian.
It's not an easy beginning. Okay, I have one question for you. I have many questions for you, Wayne. What were the challenges? You are very known because you took Sabian from this to this, with all the advertisements you do. My question is, did you have a clear vision when you start doing this of where you want to go, or kind of you were going by step and deciding what to change? Were you already thinking on the long term? You had everything planned, or you were sometimes changing?
Okay, that's a very good question. When I started with Sabian, when I started with Sabian, the company was in the shadows of Zildjian. Those who don't know, Sabian was a Zildjian company. It was built in Canada in 1968, and it handled the budget line of Zildjian cymbals called ASCO cymbals, and overflow, and apparently some difficult stuff like Chinese cymbals. Splashes are very difficult to make because they're so small and so thin, so there's a high waste rate on those. So Sabian was, Zildco at the time or ASCO was doing all that. So the ASCO was doing Zildco cymbals, Zildjian company cymbals, and some overflow stuff, like I say, the more difficult stuff. But apparently they were making 40% of Zildjian's output there. That's a substantial amount. Now, when I joined, there'd been an acrimonious split between Robert Zildjian and his brother Armin Zildjian. And in that split, Robert was forced out because he was the younger of the two. And he was given some options. He could either get out of the cymbal industry, take a huge sum of money and get out of the cymbal industry, or he could take a lesser amount and some offshore holdings owned by Zildjian and stay in the industry. And he opted for the latter. So he got to keep the plant in Canada, but they didn't have a smelter. All the smelting that made the bronze ingots from which they made cymbals, that was still done in Boston. So Bill Zildjian, the BI in Sabian, he oversaw the building of a smelter there. And they did it only, I think it was 6 weeks or whatever, really quite miraculous. So when I came in, the whole thing was Robert wanted to get back at his brother. He wanted to kill his Zildjian, which is the obvious thing. It's and
but as we said previously, it was almost impossible.
Yeah,
I mean,
so no, and I later explained to him that's not going to happen, but the fact of the matter was there wasn't a plan. There was no real strategy when I joined to do that. It was just a question of trying to convince people we made better cymbals and we were maybe a little bit hipper. It was only one day the agency in a meeting, they said, because we had done a couple of cymbals for Carmine Appice and Jacques DeJohnette, signature cymbals. And we were sort of going down that route. And the agency said one day, would you consider Sabian? It was just in a meeting. Somebody said, would you consider Sabian innovative? And it was kind of, okay, yeah, maybe we're kind of innovative because we're doing these different things. They weren't really innovative. Like in my mind, Paiste was the innovative brand. But Paiste didn't position themselves as being innovative. Their strapline was cymbals, gongs, and sounds. Okay, so as soon as I heard the word innovative, I thought I can work with that. So I didn't want to pronounce Sabian as being just innovative. Like Zildjian could be the only serious choice. And they could say, okay, we've got Steve Gadd, Vinnie Colaiuta, all these top players.
That's a powerful quote. That's a powerful.
It is. And it doesn't even mention cymbals.
Exactly.
It doesn't say we're better. It doesn't say anything like that. It just says the only serious choice. Okay. So, and I realized this one year at Frankfurt. I walked around the DW booth and there was a black wall with gold lettering and nice big black and white photos. Zildjian, the only serious choice. Steve Gadd, Vinnie Colaiuta, Dave Weckl, Dennis Chambers. You know,
Wow.
It had like 10 of those photos, and then it had A custom, K custom. Okay, so they had everything. And that made them the only serious choice, just based on that. They didn't have to say they were good. So when I saw that, I thought, okay, they are the only serious choice in that sense, in terms of positioning. Can't beat that. There's no point trying to beat that. As I said to Robert Zildjian, I said, Zildjian is here, Sabian is here. There's no point going that route. But if you just go over here, there's nothing stopping you. But doing this, after a while, you're going to run out of money. You're going to run out of steam. You're going to run out of time. If we just do this. So the whole idea of Sabian being innovative moved us over here. Nobody was claiming the innovation position. Everybody's saying, we're better, we're cooler, we got this drummer, we got that drummer. Nobody was saying anything about being different. Everybody was trying to be the better Zildjian, as it were. So the innovation thing, once we got the innovation thing happening, I didn't use it as a strap line. I used it in one of the news beats. That's where I first used it. I said Sabian most innovative. And then I started using that as a sub theme. So Sabian at the time, gosh, what was it? What was the strap line? I didn't like the strap line.
Hear the difference.
Hear the difference. That's right. Hear the difference. That was okay for a while because it invited people to hear the difference, which a lot of them did. But I didn't think it was a positioning strap line. It was a tactical strap line to get people to go listen. But it didn't say, hey, Sabian is this. Hear the difference is nothing compared to the only serious choice.
Exactly.
But when I said the most innovative, suddenly there was a new position. The only serious choice based on legacy, 300-400 years of cymbal making, traditional Turkish, versus innovation. But we also have.
So this is new. This is So innovation means this is new.
This is new.
Basically kind of the opposite, I would say. The opposite.
Exactly. And that's what you want in marketing. That's why I always say, Zildjian is chocolate. Okay. People like chocolate. Sabian will be vanilla.
There's no way. Yeah. We're not trying to make a better chocolate than the guys making the best chocolate in the world.
Exactly.
Smart.
Only, and you know, pasty could be strawberry. You can always have three. You can have a top three, but when Sabian came along, there was a top two. So first we had to make it into a top three. So that happened once I introduced the innovation aspect. Then everything we did, everything I wrote could be, this is innovative, this cymbal cream is innovative, this is innovative, this hammering is innovative. Everything could be.
Okay, so basically everything was built after that choice of.
Right. We had a lot of things, but they didn't have a label. You couldn't put them in a box and say, you couldn't take all these things and put them into a box. But once you could take all these things and put them in a box, you can say, okay, this is a box of innovation. Just like Zildjian had K, and they had the history, and they had those endorses. That was their box. This is our narrative. This is our story. Okay, with innovation, I could start to build a story for Sabian. Now, I was already trying to do innovative things with the design for the ads and the nature of the ads and the trade shows and stuff like that. So this really gave me something to work from. The problem was the company as such wasn't innovative.
Everything was innovative except the company.
Sort of, yeah. Yeah, sort of. So a lot of the thinking wasn't innovative. The marketing was innovative, but I didn't see any. For instance, there were no bold, new, innovative sales strategies. There were variations on existing themes. And of course, I understand that much better now than I did at the time. Just as I understand a lot of what I did then. I understand it much better now, why I did it and all that sort of thing. Because when I did it, I was really struggling, just trying to find different ways. It wasn't like I sat down and had a master plan, nothing like that. But I just knew that we needed to be something different. We needed to be vanilla.
That's really interesting.
That's the chocolate.
Because now that you say that, so we decide, we say we are the most innovative, so everything goes on that direction. We will try to endorse the innovative guys, we'll try to endorse the weird, in a good way, things, we'll try to be new. That's pretty interesting, because this made the decision, that decision you made, basically, now Sabian is completely different than Zildjian. It's basically it's really the opposite. It's legacy against the new
innovation.
Legacy against legacy and innovation, not against.
Well, the innovation thing, for me, innovation was more of an attitude and a mindset. It basically said we're open to trying different things. That was the key thing. Now, the thing is, okay, given that opportunity, given that for sales, given that for management, given that for cymbal design, cymbal manufacture, giving that for distribution, will the people be responsible for sales get innovative with the sales programs and how they work with the salespeople? But if you have a sales director who says, I know nothing about marketing, then it kind of stops there.
Okay.
You know, so, or if you have distributors who say, well, we're not interested, or whatever the case may be, it has to be a chain. Everything is a chain, right?
Exactly.
You have the communication chain, you have the
sales
chain.
So you felt in the beginning like you had the idea, but the others maybe didn't get it enough.
Yes, and it was difficult even with the agency.
Okay.
The agencies. That's why I got so involved. That's why I did all the writing. I ended up doing design. I designed direction. I took over the photo shoots because the agency was doing the photo shoots, and I wasn't happy. I thought that the shots were horrible. So
even the photo shoots, like basically everything in the creative aspect, you started doing everything you could.
Oh yeah. I did all that. Well, number one, I went to David one day and I said, look at Sabian is using all these little photos that are being sent in by the drummers, right? They don't look anything alike. Some are lousy, some are good, some are bad, whatever. I said, we need to own the photography, because every time if somebody looks at a photograph, they should go, that's a Sabian photograph.
I remember there was a period where I could see just the picture and it was Sabian.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And that was you.
On the front cover of Drum Club one year, there was a picture of Chad Smith. It was just a white with Chad.
Yeah.
That was a Sabian photo. So that looked like a Sabian ad.
On the cover, yeah.
Just because everybody recognizes being a Sabian photo. You see, and then when by taking, yeah, so anyways, one day the agency were doing the photos and we were doing, it was horrible. We had all sorts of, I don't know if I have anything here to show you because it's horrible, but the early stuff was horrible. Oh, I do have something. Let me show you here. Okay. See these photos?
Yeah.
Yes.
See those photos? They were just photos that were sent in to Sabian.
Yeah, they look like the end of the year school book in high school.
You have those in Italy too?
We didn't have, but we saw so many of them in American movies.
And even stuff like that was shot. I had nothing to do with that, but you know, people
Wow.
people are trying, and if you look, oh,
Which year is that catalog?
this is 1987.
87.
I did the front cover. I did this in Toronto. It's one of my first projects. I went up, a guy named Doug Tagani, photographer, wonderful chap, and we had a little room, and I laid the cymbals out in a cornucopia, and then I told the guys, I said, I want like a neon light, just Sabian, above the, and it's what they came back with. At the time, that was fine. But unfortunately, when the cymbal photography came in, you can't really see it here, but there were fingerprints on the cymbals and yeah, so the guys who did this, they were fantastic people. I love them, but they didn't have anything to work with. That was the reality. And all these pictures, they all, none of them, when you looked at it, you didn't go, hey, that's Sabian.
Okay, yeah, it was.
So I wanted, yeah, the photos came back. I remember once from LA, and Richie Hayward's one of my all-time favorite players. And the photos of Richie were horrible. They didn't even look like him. So I went to David McAllister and I said, these photos are horrible. So he said, he leaned back in his chair, he said, you think you can do it better? You think you can do a better job? You go.
Okay. You know what we say in Italy? Se vuoi una cosa fatta bene, devi farla tu. It's like, if you want something well done, you have to do it yourself. So this is the case.
Yeah. So I went out and I did it, and I came back and everybody's like going, wow. Now, in all fairness, my influence for photography and design is from fashion. I used to get all the fashion magazines, British Vogue, British Elle, Harper's and Queen, all those magazines. And going back to the photography of like David Bailey and Terence Donovan, those people in the 60s, whereas minimalist photography, white background, image, white background, image. And the great thing with the white background is, of course, we could close crop the photos. So I would have them shot on a white background. Then we could close crop the photos and we could stick them anywhere we wanted, you see. We could stick this guy with that guy. I'd take a guy shot in London, stick him with somebody from LA, put them together. It looks like they're in a group, all that sort of thing. And if I wanted them in a background, like put them in a background. But generally I didn't want them in a background because the agency would often do these, that put images on these colorful backgrounds. But when I'm doing at the printer, doing the press approvals, and you have pages that come together, where a symbol is going from one page across this divide into the next page. But doing the color correction for one page is different from the color correction on the other page because they get all these different colors. So the symbol is one color on one side and another color on the other side. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm
So
checking
by
find out.
getting rid of all that extra color noise, I could focus on the symbol, getting the symbol right. Because I'd be on, press approvals were every 4 hours. So I would do what's called a flat, which is 4 pages. They'd get all the colors right. I'd approve all that. I'd go back to the motel. I'd sleep for 4 hours. 2:33 in the morning, the phone would ring. It's 30 degrees below zero. I get in the car, drive across town, spend a couple hours with the guys getting that flat right. And all this time was largely correcting what the agency had done.
Wow.
Because the designers were so into all these colors and that. They were just thinking of themselves.
Yeah.
And that was the problem. Everybody had their own little silo. This guy does this guy does it. And then it all has to come together and work together, but it wasn't doing that. So I took over the writing. I took over a lot of the design. I took over all that stuff because I knew all the different stages. I was the one putting my name on the end of it, saying this is okay. And a lot of times I put my name on things that I didn't like. I'm not saying that they were bad. I'm just saying they were acceptable to other people. And I don't mean to sound like some sort of snob, but they weren't acceptable to me.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because those other people weren't thinking as deeply as I was about this stuff. And you have to think deeply about it. Because
So
go ahead.
I have one question. So let's resume a bit what happened. You decide Sabian is going to be a futuristic brand, an innovative brand. And you decide slowly to change a small part of the chain in order to make everything working in the same direction.
Right.
So you had problems with other people doing things for Sabian because they didn't know what you wanted to, and you started taking even the pictures. So it was be easier for you to have the image you wanted of the artist in the way you wanted. So that's pretty cool.
Exactly.
You choose a white background in order to make it easy to glue them together and to make the advertising look in the same way. My question is, when something you felt, okay, this is working, because I guess it takes a bit, it takes some time to understand you did the right thing. When it was the moment you felt, okay, I'm doing the things right, because I don't know, sales or somebody told you you were doing a great job. When was the moment you felt, okay, I did it right?
It started before this, but Newsbeat. Now, I really want to show you Newsbeat. This is what, Newsbeat 94. I really want to show you Newsbeat 95, but I couldn't find one. I never keep track of all this stuff. It's just in boxes down in the basement. I'm not somebody who keeps track of these things. Now I wish I did. This isn't great. A lot of things about this aren't great, but this was the start. I was at the agencies one night because I used to go down there for like a week at a time. And I was in the building late. It was 10 o'clock at night. Everybody was gone. I somehow was the only person left in the building. And I went down, I was up top and I went down in the lower floor. And there was one of the designers, Daryl Monroe. And he was sitting in front of an Apple Macintosh, nothing on the screen. And I called him Demon, D. Monroe, Daryl Monroe, Demon. So I said, Demon, what's up? He says, oh God, he says, I don't have enough information to start the new Newsbeat. He had nothing. So over in the corner, there were some fashion magazines, Canadian fashion magazines, not the British ones, but Canadian. That was okay. So I brought them over and I put them down beside the computer and I opened them up and I said, okay, here's what I want. And I started showing him the white pages, how the photography was done, that sort of thing. And the next day, a couple of days later, I was home and we used to have fax machines then. He started faxing me through the designs. And I said, okay, that's great. That's great. Move this, get rid of that, whatever the case may be. So I was directing him. And we came up with this. That photo.
Just a bit of a background for who doesn't know. Newsbeat was the Sabian catalog, but Wayne had the great idea of organizing it like it was a magazine. I don't know if you remember it, Raphael.
Certo.
There were interviews, transcriptions,
Okay,
reviews.
So it was worth tracking it. It was not only a catalog. It was like a
and that
magazine.
was Wayne's idea. And I collected them and I learned about
great idea.
stuff.
Great idea, certo. So the catalog is not a boring thing anymore. It's something you want to
exactly.
check.
Exactly. Because
you get excited.
If you have a catalog, let's say you have a 60-page Tama catalog, okay? You have a 60-page Tama catalog. You're interested in only one drum set.
Yeah.
So so what about the other 58 pages? You know? So I figured instead of having a catalog, we'd have what the agency, we used to call it a brand zine. So my whole thing was, instead of having a catalog, instead of making a product thing, let's make it a culture thing. Let's create a cultural publication for drummers where it's philosophy. You know, it's a more philosophical approach. And I always like the idea of educating the consumer, empowering them, because when they have information, then they can look at Zildjian, they can look at Sabian, they can look at Paiste, and they go, I know this about Sabian. I don't know anything about Zildjian. I don't know anything about Sabian. So I didn't have to say we make better cymbals. Did we make better cymbals?
They know more about you than the others, so they will end up buying your stuff.
They know more about the players who use your stuff.
Yeah, right. And also,
they feel more comfortable, more confident when they walk
part of the family.
And well, that as well. And that's what I wanted. I had no interest in sales. Okay, I had no interest in sales. I was interested in creating an audience. That's what I saw in my role. Sales figures, there were too many people in between. Maybe the distributor was bringing in the wrong products. Maybe our salespeople weren't effective in selling. Maybe they didn't educate the people at the music stores. The music stores didn't know. There are any number of things that go wrong along the way. I had no control over those, but I could control the image and the voice of Sabian that was going out there to influence them. So in this one here, for instance, let's see. There I am as a younger guy. I kept my photos out of here, and then one day David McAllister said to me, "Put your effing picture in the effing magazine, will you?" I really didn't want to be known, and I tell you why I didn't want to be known, because if you're a 60-year-old jazz guy in New Orleans reading this, or you're a 16-year-old punk in Stockholm, Sweden reading this, you see Wayne Blanchard as being like you, right? You see him as I really relate to this guy. He's like me. But when I put my picture in there, and you know about me, you go, oh, he's not like me at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it creates a barrier.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's kind of like, you ever listen to, this happened recently. Somebody does these vlogs, okay? And they're London train vlogs. I love that stuff. The London trains and the London Underground, the tubes and stuff like that. And so I'm hearing this voice for a few years. And in my mind, I've kind of got an idea what this guy looks like, And I think he's older. He's maybe a retired guy, and it actually turns out he's a young guy. And it kind of ruins the whole thing. I'd rather I didn't see him. Nothing the matter with him, but it's just, it contradicted.
Yeah.
I had my mind. But anyways, to give you an idea. So in this issue of Newsbeat, which was kind of like the first one where I tried this, I did cymbal setups. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great. Yeah. So okay, cool.
So I came up with this thing called the clock concept. Now, around this time, drummers were getting out of using pads and all these extra things. Simmons drums were out and stuff like that. So I thought, okay, well, how can Sabian take advantage of that? Well, we can put out the idea that having more cymbals in your setup is cool. And so I convinced the guy.
So they will buy more.
Yes. Right. So I suggested we did a roctagon, which is an 8-side cymbal. I suggest we do like mini roctagons. We did Chinese cymbals. I said, let's do mini Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do variations of these things. So instead of having a pad where you get white noise, you can put 2 little Chinese cymbals and get white noise.
So Raphael, Wayne's fault for all the money that we spent on mini Chinas and roctagons.
Now I understand. Even though I think that the greatest promoter for Sabian, it was Mike Portnoy.
Yeah.
Because all the cymbal, when we used to see those pictures of
he had the whole catalog, mini Chinas,
right.
odd size splash.
Okay, we'll get to Mike Portnoy in a minute.
Yeah.
So what I did here is, it's kind of like, if you have a basic setup, a 3-piece setup, can you see that? Yeah.
Yeah.
A piece sheet, you can expand it, make it a little bit more exciting, a little bit more colorful. And if you really want to go the whole hog, then have cymbals on both sides. You can play with both sides, with both hands.
Yep.
So it was introduced.
That's a great idea. That's a great advertising, because
right.
you are indirectly selling the cymbals.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't sound like an advertising, but it's
yeah. But of course it is. Yeah. You're not telling buy twice as much of cymbals as you were going to buy, but you say, hey, look how many options we have. That's
how many varieties.
Look at what you could do. See, that's what this is. Okay. Now you can look at that and say, man, nobody's going to have a cymbal set up like that. That isn't the idea. These are my Sonar drums, and I set them up in various different variations. But the idea of having a couple of Chinese cymbals up there, or having splashes to crashes, or having 2 crashes up there, or having a couple of hi-hats.
Yeah.
It's the idea.
Yeah.
You look at that and you go, and the cymbals look great.
Yes, exactly.
That was another thing with me. The cymbals should look killer. Why can't they? So, but that was the whole thing, is to try to get people to say, hey, what if I added a crash over my floor tom? Then I could do a fill, and I could end there. And what if I had a splash on this side, or I put a splash down where my Kelvin, or I put a second hi-hat up here, so I've got 2 hi-hats, or whatever. So that's what this was about. And I gave some notation where you could do some different things by adding cymbals. And then over here I introduced things that I call pitch charts. So we could have pitch charts showing that this cymbal is dark, this was medium bright, and then this one is bright. And we could show that in colors. We could show the different series as different pitches, dark to bright. And you could look at your setup and say, well, I'm going to get AAX and HHX, and you could look at in terms of.
So basically, anybody could buy the catalog and understand more what
the catalog was free.
Yeah, I want to buy.
Not buy. I mean, could get the catalog and understand
through the catalog.
So you were really empowering the customer to understand what he needs.
Exactly. So the same sort of thing here. Different setups. Notice the drums are all set up different. The cymbals are all set up different. And then, once again, we have pitch charts. All the little shapes, all these little shapes. Man, that was a lot of work trying to get the agency to get those right. They show this is thick, this is thin. Yes, so all these things.
And my question is, this is all super interesting. Thank you for sharing it. When this stuff came out, after how long did you see any differences on the sales? Like 1 year, 2 years?
Almost immediately.
Wow.
I think almost immediately. I don't have the figures.
No, but you said something changed. This is work. This
is what changed in the market, even if the figures didn't change right away, because not everybody needs a new cymbal today. They might buy a new cymbal next year.
Yeah.
So they see it today, but it's a year before they buy. But the response to this, is what started to change people's impression of Sabian. People started going, whoa. Here, for instance, Zildjian didn't do anything about any sort of educational stuff. So a lot of people who bought Zildjian cymbals just bought the brand. A lot of the kids at the time were hard hitters, but they were buying thin cymbals. And they were buying thin cymbals sound great in the shop. You tap them with your finger, they sound great. Oh, I like that one. The one that they should have been getting, the rock cymbal, when they hit that with their finger, it just goes gong, gong, right? Because you have to hit it really hard to get it to open up. So they would buy the thin ones, and they were breaking them. And we had a lot of people contacting us saying, I'm switching to Sabian because I keep breaking my Zildjian cymbals. And my take on that was Zildjian wasn't educating their audience. So their audience was kids were just buying the brand, not thinking, what series do I need to cut? What thickness do I need so it doesn't break? So that's what I was introducing here. So not only did that pull customers from the other brands, it also helped ensure that Sabian suffered less breakage.
Yeah, and I remember that on the catalog there were also guides on how to mount your cymbals, how to play them, the sweeping motion, and all help.
There's a bit of that there. Now here with Chad Smith, we were doing a photo shoot in LA once, and I said, okay, Chad, I want you to sit on this chair. I'm going to give you some sticks. I just want you to sit there. I'm going to move a cymbal in front of you. No. Remind myself. I said, I want you to play air drums. Just play air drums. And when you feel comfortable for your ride cymbal, stop. Now I want you to do the same with the hi-hat. So he looks at me. He says, Wayne, I'm not going to look like an effing idiot, am I? I said, no. No, this is going to be cool. This is going to be cool, Chad. You're going to be helping a lot of people out here. So that's what I did. He started. He played air drums, air cymbals, right? And that's where his comfort zone was. That's where he was comfortable. So I moved the cymbals in.
Wow.
And positioned the cymbal right where his stick was stopping. That's what I did with my own kit. When I got my current Sonar kit, I had all the cymbals up, and I literally played air, and then I swing the cymbal into place and angle it. That's where it is. Because not everybody has the same physicality, you know?
Yes.
So it was stuff like that. So okay, that helps. Sabian is helping the drummers. Sabian is helping prevent breakage. Sabian is also helping the player play better, feel more comfortable. Double-handed riding. Double-handed riding. What else is on here? Try this. Double hats. Hi-hat on each side of the kit. Right?
That's really interesting. Yeah, try this. Per la serie compra che provi qua, poi lo metti qua.
Yeah.
That's a great.
Yeah,
Vinnie Paul.
Vinnie Paul.
Yeah, that's from Plantera.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Plantera.
Have you worked closely with Vinnie Paul?
I spent a day with Vinnie Paul. Someday I'll tell you about that, Raphael. We'll chat after this. But this one here as well, having layering cymbals. So they're layered.
I remember because you did it. Yeah, layering cymbals. I remember.
So you can down, you can get them nice and fast, and then once again, double Chinese. Once again, having Chinese on each side.
Even with the transcription, I saw even.
Yes.
Grande Wayne. Yeah.
So I did all the transcriptions as well. Just try to. Everything was so much easier if I did it.
That's a great. Yeah. It was like a free magazine with a lot of informations. So you were like, okay, I'm gonna buy this and that. That's a great. I remember everybody for some people was into all the splashes and the mini Chinas from Sabian.
Yes.
Everybody. I wanted them so badly, but it wasn't easy to find them in Sardinia.
See, now in later issues, this was, I was heavily involved with this. This was basically an agency produced one. But see here, once I had the innovation idea, I could say 25 years of Sabian innovation.
Yeah, you can capitalize it.
That gave me the box to put everything in. People go, wow, look at all this stuff. But you see, no photo of Wayne.
When you got more power, you had it taken off. Wayne, I have a question. I remember you telling me that although you were not directly involved with artist relations, sometimes you used to get on the phone or answer phone calls and deal with drummers, and you treat them everybody the same. They could have been like the national-wide, worldwide famous or local players. You would want to hear their feedback, and you had a strategy where you would ask, especially local drummers, if they wanted to trade their own cymbals of different brands with Sabian. If you can elaborate that, because that to me was a genius move.
Yes, when I first joined Sabian, I was looking after the Canadian artist relations for the drummers. Okay, I specify because there are classical players and orchestra players. I wasn't doing that. So I was looking after for the drummers, and I was the point of contact for the UK and the Europeans if they needed me, but the UK primarily. I was heavily involved with the UK and the American stuff as well. Some of the American stuff, I dealt with a lot of American stuff as well, though they had offices in Boston and New York. So I was involved with artist relations, but yes, I would get calls. And I would also get calls put through to me that were, some 15-year-old kid.
Okay.
And I spend half an hour on the phone with him. To me, I don't care who you are. If you're a good person, I'm there for you, right? I don't care if you're 10 years old, 100 years old, if you're from Romania or you're from England or wherever, that doesn't matter to me.
Actually, this is one of the reasons why I stayed with Minor for 20 years. Because in the beginning, I was just a kid asking questions, and they were very kind with me. That's kindness. It's a very powerful thing, my friend. Especially a 15-year-old.
the very first time I met Wayne, and then I want to hear the story, I was at the Model Drummer Festival with Furio Chirico, and I knew who you were. And Wayne has never heard of me, never met me before. And we casually started chatting backstage about this great drummer called Mark Cranny. And we hit it off. And I think he spoke to me. I mean, that day, it was like the Model Drummer Festival 2002. It was Thomas Lang, Simon Phillips, John Blackwell, Jimmy DeGrasso, and Wayne spoke to me only for 45 minutes, and I was a nobody.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's an artist relator job.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, find somebody and they always remember who they spoke with. I remember I met a girl who was working with Zildjian a couple of years ago. I don't remember her name. Maybe Sarah something.
Sarah Hagen.
Yes, and
Yeah.
we met at a music fair, and she was so nice to me about
She
explaining.
works for us at Drumeo. She is the artist relation manager at Drumeo.
Great artist relator, great
Yes.
artist, super nice, explaining it. I was like, hey, I'm endorsed with Minors. Yeah, but if you ever change your mind, give me a call. And she gave me the
card.
it was super.
Okay.
Yeah, you will never forget these people.
Go on about the phone calls.
Yeah, so to me, all people are equal. You know, I don't care. I don't care what you've got, who you are. You're just as equal as the next guy. And if there's a 10, 15-year-old kid calls in, you know, yeah, and send him a T-shirt, send him some catalogs. I had somebody recently. Oh God. Yeah. Anyway, maybe on Facebook, somebody said, "Look, at years ago," he said, "I phoned in. I was just a young kid, and you sent me a T-shirt and Newsbeat and stickers, and you spoke to me for about 40 minutes on the phone, and it's kind of like changed my life." You know, actually, one of my best friends now, Naveed Majid, drummer, singer, but he's an engineer. He has his own successful engineering company. And we've become very good friends. He's a fabulous person. And we've become very good friends over the past couple of years. I occasionally accompany him on trips for his engineering jobs. In fact, he messaged me today. He messaged me last night. You want to go for an 8-hour trip? You know, to all these things he's got to look after. And I told him I was prepping for this. But anyways, Naveed reminded me after we started to get acquainted a couple of years ago. He said, "You probably don't remember, but I first met you around 1981, 82. I said, "No." He said, "You played my town up in the north of the province. And I came up to you after when you were tearing your kit down." And he said, "You actually talked to me, I don't know, half an hour or whatever." He said, "And then," he said, "you helped me buy my Sabian cymbals." This is before I was in Sabian. He said, "You helped me get my Sabian cymbals through Tony's music box. You arranged all that for me."
Wow.
I couldn't remember any of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm pretty good at helping others. I'm not great at helping myself.
Go on with the story of people and you proposing them the trade-off for their brand to say.
Oh yes, I would get. I forgot about that. I would get calls from drummers who wanted to be endorsers, and I would say, because in the early days, a lot of people were being brought on as endorsers that really didn't qualify in my books, like from a marketing point of view. Nothing to do with their drumming or anything. It's just they weren't really suitable for it. And so what I would say is I'd get these calls and I would say, "Thank you for your interest." I said, either you don't qualify, or I said, "I could give you an endorsement today, and I can assure you that at the end of the year, when they do the reviews of the endorsements, you'll come off." And I said, "If you come off, chances are you won't get back on again. So here's what I'm going to suggest. What are you playing?" So there's one guy down the road. He says, "My setup is K Zildjian's made in Canada." when they moved the hand hammering to Canada. I said, okay, I tell you, you send me your K Zildjians, and I will send you a set of Sabians.
Wow.
So that's what I do to these guys.
And what did you did with all this the zillions they sent you? Like
they would go to room area 501. Do you know area 501?
Ah, l'area 51, certo, area 51. Sì,
yeah,
sì.
yeah. So they had a room at Sabian. North Hargrove had a room at Sabian, area 501. And sometimes when they're making cymbals, things would screw up, but it'd be a really neat sound. And so they'd take all these like junk cymbals and they'd put them in there, and any odds and sods that they had, they'd put them in there as reference. So you want to know what a Paiste 2002 16-inch crash sounds like? Have we got one in the room?
L'area 51.
Okay,
now
so that's what I'd do is I'd get those cymbals and they'd go in there. Now I got that idea actually because when I joined Sabian, I was playing Paiste, and they said you can have a free set of cymbals. I said I'm not sure if you make anything that's better than the Paistes. So anyways, I kept playing my Paistes for 9 months.
Okay.
And David McAllister, a few months in, David McAllister comes to me. He said, "Are you still playing those Paistes?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah. Bob's not going to be happy. Robert Zildjian's not going to be happy." So I kept playing them anyways. And about 9 months, David says, "Bob is really, really pissed. You better change." So I went over and I changed my cymbals, and I got some Sabians, but I sold my Paistes. So those Paistes went to a local drummer, Gary Nightingale, fabulous friend of many years, hotshot drummer. And so he played the Paistes. So what was that doing for Paiste? That was advertising Paiste. So when I joined Sabian, I wasn't thinking about these
That's a very smart idea. Cioè, comunque i piatti te li togliamo da circuito. We take off those symbols from the
market.
From the market.
Yeah, that's a smart thing.
So once I did that, I realized what I had done. I'd kept Paiste out there, and people were going, "Oh, Gary, I love your Paistes. Oh yeah, Paistes, great."
So maybe you earn some money, but at the end of the day, your company lost way more money than what you earned.
Right, but the great thing is the Paistes broke.
Thanks God. Yeah.
So Gary ended up with Sabian. Yeah.
Wayne,
So
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Is there a way to take off the logos from the cymbals without damaging it? You know why I'm asking you this? Because I'm in a very particular endorsement situation now, and I'm thinking about being free agent because I can find cymbals, but I don't want any logo because I know I will be advertising some company a lot, and I don't want to do that. So is there a way?
My cymbals have no logos. All you need is like a paint cleaner, like a thinner. Just whatever ladies use for their nail polish remover to take the nail polish off.
L'acetone.
Acetone, yeah, acetone.
Se c'è qualche ragazza in ascolto, non credo, ma mi serve dell'acetone per rimuovere il logo. Because I'm thinking about going, keeping just the real endorsements that I have, but symbol wise, I have to take some decisions. But also, I was thinking, like, dude, you can find everything used now.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Now let me explain, because I clarified this in one of the news beats or whatever many years ago. You have B8 cymbals, B8 bronze, and you have B20 cymbals, B20 bronze. So Zildjian A custom, Sabian HHAX, those are B20. Meinl Byzance is B20. One of the Paiste ones, I think 602 might be B20. And then they have one called 20, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Paiste 20?
Don't make it anymore, but they used to have it, yes.
Okay. So those are B20. So B20 is a bronze alloy that is 80% copper, 20% tin. Now B8 is only 8% tin and 92% copper. Now the problem with copper is that copper discolors. It goes black. It goes green.
Okay.
It goes green, then it goes black. I don't know. But anyway, so B8s, B10s, B12s, anything less than B20 is normally, would be coated in a lacquer, a thin lacquer. Okay, so when you clean a B20 cymbal, a B8 cymbal, you don't use anything abrasive because it will scratch, and wherever you scratch, that will discolor.
Okay.
Okay, now B20 cymbals, there were complaints coming in from the shops that Sabian cymbals, and I suppose maybe Zildjian cymbals at the time as well, they were getting all the fingerprints on them. People were playing them, getting fingerprints, stick marks, fingerprints. So the new cymbals, they couldn't sell them as new. Nobody wanted to pay full price on them because they were used from everybody trying them out. So then Sabian or Zildjian would have done this as well, got the idea of putting a very thin coat of lacquer over the B20 as well, because then they could wipe the dirt off. The guys in the store could just take like a window cleaner spray or whatever, because they're not, in both cases, the B8 and the B20, you're not cleaning the cymbal, you're cleaning the lacquer on top of that.
Okay. And the logo is on the lac is on below the lacquer.
I'm not sure. I would think so. I would think so, only because maybe the lacquer would make the logo run. The ink on the logo would run. So I think that they do all the lacquering first, and then they must do that. They must stamp on top of the lacquer.
Okay.
So you would have to, if you've got B20 cymbals, if you've got Byzance, and maybe one or two of the other model series, they're B20 as well. You could strip everything off. If you want to get rid of logos, you'd automatically be taking some of the lacquer off, so you'd have to get rid of all the lacquer. Then you just keep them clean. I just wash my cymbals in a sink. I'll put them in a sink, washing up liquid and a fingernail brush.
Okay.
Then I stand them to dry, and that's it.
Thank you. I will think about it.
We can talk about
Okay,
it.
now I have a question about what's going on today, since we're probably gonna do another live like this, because it's gonna be a lot. There are many things to be said, and we like to do like always 1 hour and a half, not anymore length. About 2 days endorsement deals. My question is, what's your standpoint? What's your opinion about it? Looks like nobody's investing really. Everybody's like, now there is a lot of artist price. There are no t-shirts, no posters. All the stuff that I loved when I was a kid is gone. And I think, I remember when you put I have posters here that are here from 20 years, like the Joy Jordison poster with Pearl, like I have even some Sabian pictures here of my idols. And today they don't do this anymore. I think it's, I don't know.
Lack of money.
But I mean, so much lack of money, you don't do any stickers anymore.
Well. I think that after the around 2000, around the year 2000, around then the drum industry, maybe the music industry, the drum industry was having trouble. MTV had finished, the grunge thing had finished, Britpop had finished. There were no trends. There was nobody driving people to buy. And then along came the financial crash. The people have never really recovered from that. The companies started cutting endorsers. They started cutting product lines. They cut out their advertising in the magazines. That helped kill the magazines. So with Modern Drummer, for instance, they could get 80 to 140,000 drummers every month. Within a week, you'd get like 140,000 drummers, let's say, all looking at modern drummers. They would all at once, they would see your new products, they'd see your ads, they'd see your endorsements, they'd see your product reviews. Everything was happening all at once. So you had that hit every month. And then once you stopped advertising, well, they had already stopped doing product reviews. They couldn't afford to do product reviews. People stopped doing the advertising. You suddenly lost your audience. And of course, the companies are going, oh yeah, well, we're going to take that money and we're going to put it into our website. Does anybody have a really good and effective website? I've not seen one. They're out of date. They're poorly written, lousy photography. They're poorly arranged. I haven't seen, seriously, a good website. One website for a company that changed its logo. I went back to them and pointed out some things. Nothing happened. The websites of the companies, the big companies even, a lot of those are they're not necessarily bad websites for the seller in terms of convenience. Here's how you order and all that stuff, but how the brands are represented. So if Sabian is going to be in Long and McQuaid's website, 4 years after you change your logo, and your old logo is still on your page.
Yeah,
it's stuff like that. You've got, people have to manage this sort of thing. But getting back to what you're saying, they don't need posters now because they don't have posters in stores. Slat wall, when they started using slat wall, that took away all the wall space. Yes, there's such a thing as you can either make money or you can save money. And I think a lot of companies today are saving money. By not doing things, they're saving money, which shows up as black ink on their bottom line.
Yeah, but for example, there are other companies like Chinese companies who are selling stuff. Who are sending stuff. Try our stuff and then let us know. For example, as I told you, I own different drum schools, and we always try to find good deals for us and for the company, since we make them sell a lot of stuff. I have a local shop who thanks me every 2 hours because our students are buying stuff. And they buy what they see on their drum school. They try this and they try that. And I found out that many people from the smaller companies in China, they have more will to invest. Like, we send you some cymbals, try them, and then let us know. This used to happen also with Minor many years ago. They were like, try these. And then we will, of course, buy 20 or 30 cymbals in the store. Now, looks like everybody doesn't give a shit. They just try to save money. They just try to do the bare minimum so the company keeps going. With the kids, I'm talking about with the young kids, it looks like they are investing everything on Instagram or YouTube, but they don't care about real people anymore. This is what I feel like it's happening.
Yes, and a lot of the Instagram and YouTube, that doesn't translate to sales. Like,
Dude, actually, Wayne, this is important. I want to tell something to Sergio. I was in the last week. I went to 2 shows of Sepultura and Cavalera Conspiracy. Sepultura and Cavalera Conspiracy is basically the same band who split it. Sepultura, they hired a new drummer, a very talented guy, Sepultura has a drummer who is very famous on Instagram, seriously very huge famous on Instagram. And this guy was walking between the crowd in Milano and nobody gave a shit. I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. It was, it was impressive because nobody cared. Igor Cavalera, the historical Sepultura drummer, couldn't walk 30 minutes from the crowd. They were like screaming, and everybody knew what brand he played, what was he playing. Everybody knew. And on Instagram, if you see the posts and the numbers, it looked like that guy, the young guy, makes way more sales. I bet he doesn't. After that day, I was impressed. This guy is famous on Instagram, but nobody at his own show he's stopping the guy for a picture. We
Wow.
have a problem. No, Sergio, it was like scary because nobody gave a shit. It was scary. The other guy. So yeah, sorry, Wayne. This exactly views doesn't translate to sales. This finally somebody saying this.
Well, you know, it's a complex issue. It's a complex issue. Myself personally, I feel that there are a lot of people in the music industry who shouldn't be in the music industry. I think that there are a lot of misinterpretations of what things are, what marketing is, what it could be, what it should be, how it affects people, brand and branding, different interpretations of what a brand is. You know, companies think that they own their brands. They don't own their brands. The public owns their brands. The public determines who they are. If you're the only serious choice, you have to act like the only serious choice. And the minute you stop acting like the only serious choice, the public will tell you you're not the only serious choice. The minute you stop being innovative, the public will say you're not innovative anymore. We see it all the time. Look at pop stars and movie stars. You get some big movie star, and then he says something, and everybody loves this movie star. And then he says something wrong. He goes out and gets drunk one night and he says something stupid. What happens to him? His career is over because the people go, we don't like this guy anymore. He's done. He's done. And that's what it is with a lot of these companies. You see, and as long as the major companies, look, if Zildjian isn't going to present itself as the only serious choice, then somebody else will come along and become the only serious choice because they're the most innovative or they're not like everybody else. With Meinl, I gave them a strapline, not like everybody else, for the catalogs I did for them. Not like everybody else. That's a great position because there are a lot of people who don't feel like they want to be like everybody else. Just like the punks and the grunge people, you know? That's why when punk came out, there was an automatic audience for it because there were all these people who say, I don't want to be like everybody else. Oh,
yeah.
Now we've got punk. Oh, now we've got Meinl. See, so they're just fundamental things that need to be done that aren't getting done. Everybody's going around saying, here I am with my friend. Hey, here I am backstage. You see me, I'm trying to keep my face out of the catalogs. They're trying to put their face in.
Yeah. I think we are... Yeah.
One quick thing. You know why Sabian lost George Collias?
No.
I know. Because after everything he did for the brand, somebody said, hey, from this moment on, you have an artist prize. And that same day, he called Zildjian and said, okay, I'm leaving. Then they tried to, no, sorry, it was a mistake. After he made the brand sell so many cymbals, because he had all this huge kit, and somebody someday tell him, yeah, from now on, you have an artist prize. So
yeah. See, that's because whoever made that phone call didn't know what they were talking about.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's like...
But that person who made that phone call is somewhere down the ladder. Somebody up top said,
yeah, of course. We have to save money. Now, many people, they look only at the files. Like, okay, we have to save, I don't know, 20%. So what we do, we cut the endorsements. But I feel like everybody is losing the contact with some brands because I mean, there were so many changes in the last couple of years of big names that you're like, I don't feel like this is like, I feel a connection with this brand anymore because they changed like it looked like football players. You go from one team to another.
But what is the brand?
I saw many brands changing. What is a brand?
What is the Sabian brand today? What is the Zildjian brand today? What is the Paiste brand today?
Now they look like only they're trying to sell stuff. Before, I used to see them as an entity, as something, I don't know. I used to see them like identities. Yeah, Vinnie Paul is playing Sabian. I want to play Sabian. I mean, if Vinnie Paul would have switched to any other brand, it would be a shock for me as a customer. Like, okay, I mean, some artists, some endorsements, they are very powerful for the brand, and sometimes they forgot it. And so, yeah, it's kind of, to me these days, all these brands means a little, to be honest with you, compared to what they used to mean to me.
But let me go back to my question. Who is Sabian today? Who is Zildjian? Who is Paisi? Who is Meinl? Sabian used to be the most innovative. Zildjian was the only serious choice. Meinl was not like everybody else. Paisi was, well, they never really took a position. But you see, this is what I say. What differentiates these different brands? Who are they? When you go if you go to the NAMM show, they just have the name of the company. Tama, Pearl, maybe. I don't know. I've been to the NAMM show for a few years, but you don't see this is who we are. We are Pearl. This is who we are. We are Tama. Zildjian. This is who we are. We don't see any of that. And so it causes these brands to come down. It gives a chance for brands to come up. Meinl's success has a large part, maybe we can get into this about what I helped Meinl with, but when these brands come down because their identity becomes very vague, people don't know who they are, that's an opportunity for the other ones to come up. So you see, yes, Meinl has come up a lot in the past few years. When I helped them, they wanted to be number 2. I said, I can make you look and sound like number 2. And eventually you won't sell like number 2 initially, but over the years, people will see you as number 2, and then you will start to sell as number 2. So as these ones are coming down, Meinl is coming up. So if those ones stayed up there, Meinl would have much further to go. Much further to go. But with them going up and these ones coming down, you get this much sooner. That's my take on it.
Interesting, really interesting. Yeah. Anyway, you're right. It's a lot of confusion. You don't see the difference today. It looks like, and that's why I even felt like, I want to have, like, for example, I want to have a Zildjian China and some splashes from Sabian and some. Before a couple of years ago, to me, it would be like, you have to have a Sabian setup or a Zildjian setup. Or now I don't feel this anymore. Like, everything is different to me,
Well, when people say, when these companies say, we'll give you an endorser deal, okay? So what's that, 50 off maybe?
Yeah, but and I can find the same stuff on eBay or somewhere else.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
The problem is they want an artist to do the pictures, the videos, and tag them and do all this stuff, and they are offering a discount for something that I can easily find on
Cheaper.
eBay. Cheaper. So
Yeah.
I'm like, this thing is making me mad, because when I got the prices for the Italian distributor about the stuff, I said, do I look like a 15? Because before they would give you some exposure. Now you have to give them exposure even. So I'm supposed to work.
You're promoting.
So I'm working for. I'm promoting you, and I'm paying you your stuff.
That's why I say that if you go through, and I hope I'm not being unfair and sounding nasty here, but if you went through the companies, even the big brands, if you brought them in on this conversation and we put questions to them, a lot of those people couldn't answer the questions because they don't know. They're in the music business because it's fun, it's cool. I get to hang out, I get to go to NAMM, all that stuff. And I was never interested in that stuff. I said to Robert Zildjian, I said, I'm not here for your money. I'm not here to have fun. I'm not here to hang out in bars with drummers. I said, I'm here to work and I'm here to make a difference. I remember one year we were all set to go to the NAMM show, and we would have to go from Meductic. We'd have to go across the American border into Maine to go to an airport there. And I was sitting there on the computer working on stuff, dealing with the agency. And I had my bags packed beside me, ready to go, my ticket, passport. And David came in and said, "It's time to go, Wayne." And I said, "I'm not going."
Why?
He says, what do you mean they're not going? I said, "I've got work here that needs to get done." "Are you sure? You're going to miss out a week in California." I said, "This work needs to get done." And he later thanked me. He said, "You're probably the only person that would give up a week in California to
do a job,
to work." I wasn't being a martyr. It's just, it needed to be done.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I understand.
Yeah,
That's why you are who you are.
And-
I can, because I do the same with my school and with my stuff.
Right.
And-
And let me explain. It was me who determined it needed to be done. It wasn't somebody else saying, "We need this." It was me.
Yeah.
Most of what I did, these shoots here, there was no plan with these shoots. I just put my drums and got some boxes of cymbals, put them in my car, drove 2 hours or whatever down to where the agency is. And I said, is the photographer available today? Great guy, done photography for me over the years. David Corkum, fantastic. He and I get such good work. Anyways, he was over in a warehouse shooting for a food catalog. A big grocery chain. This agency would do their food catalog, their specials every week, a little newspaper. So I go over there. It's a big, like a barn, and I just set my drums up, and I set up some cymbals, and I said to David, I said, "Whenever you get a break, you get 15 minutes between shooting that. Can you come over here and shoot this?"
Okay.
So I set up all the lighting. So he'd come over and he'd shoot that. Then he'd go back to shooting all the food stuff. And I'd put all the take the HHX down, put the AX, move the kit all around. And like an hour later, he's finished that. He'd come over. So we'd spend 10 or 15 minutes to shoot that. And so that's how these happened. Nobody knew I was going to do it. And then after I did it, and I went back to Meductic, the agency complained to David McAllister. "What the hell is Wayne doing? What the hell is Wayne doing? Corkum's working on that stuff." Well, I got Corkum when he wasn't working on that, when he was taking a break, And we did these. These became posters. These were all over the world. Many years later, I went into a shop in Montreal, and they still had these posters up. That poster never goes out of date. There's no endorser on there. There's nothing. It's just, wow. When you see a big poster like that, that's your response, right? When you see ads like this in the magazines, and here I am saying, look go get your newsbeat. Go get your catalog. These are ads in the magazines.
Yeah.
When Sabian did contests, I would often insist that I design the contest. So
yeah, you could win all of those cymbals, right?
Yeah. So I would design the contest to look like a Sabian ad.
And I think we're going towards the end, but this ties in perfectly, because I think through this contest, this is how you found out about Mike Portnoy, right?
I did
like
one.
a kid that won one of these contests or was about to win.
Yes. I signed Mike Portnoy.
Listen, I didn't know that. You signed Mike Portnoy?
Yeah.
That's a great signing, Miga. Proprio the best advertiser for Sabian ever.
Right. Well, what happened is I did a contest. Once again, I just did this on my own. It was Sabian's 10th anniversary. So I did a contest called 10 Big Ones.
It's 1993 then, right?
I don't remember the year, but 10 big ones. And there would be 10 winners. 10 winners. Each winner would get 10 Sabian cymbals.
Wow.
Okay. And I did up little coupons and all went out to the shops and all that sort of thing. And I picked 10 winners, and I phoned them up, and I said, you had to have a question. The law said you had to have a skill testing question. So what I would do is the question, the answer was in the Sabian ad in the magazine. So I have the question, the contest is running, and it say the answer is in this issue, in the Sabian ad. And this, so then they had to go read the Sabian ad. That means everybody would notice the Sabian ad and they'd read it. And then, so I picked out 10 winners and I phoned them up. All of them got the answer because all of them went right to the ad and got the answer. One girl, she didn't get it. I said, it's right there in the ad. And she kept giving me the wrong answer. Everything she said was wrong. I said, sorry, dear, I really can't give this to you. So I called an 11th person. Now, of those people, I would just casually chat to them, make them feel comfortable. And I say, who you listening to these days? I didn't have any paper. I wasn't taking notes. Two of them said, oh man, Dream Theater were through last week. Mike Portnoy. I'm going, wow, I never heard of Dream Theater. Mike Portnoy. So I phoned our chap in Boston, Steve Oxnock, wonderful fellow. I said, Steve, have you ever heard of a band called Dream Theater? He goes, yeah. I said, well, do you know anything about it? He goes, yeah, just a bunch of dropouts from Berkeley. I said, okay. I said, can you do me a favor? I said, the drummer's name is Mike Portnoy. Can you check with him, see if he's interested in Sabian endorsement or if he's already endorsed by somebody? So a couple of days later, Steve gets back to me. He said, he's not endorsing cymbals. He plays Sabian, but he's not endorsing anything. He said he only endorses some purple drumsticks. I said, okay, great. I said, I feel good about this. Give him a set of cymbals, whatever he wants, put it on my account. I very seldom ever did that. I very seldom gave things away, or I never had, in 24 years, I never had not even one bar tab, for instance. But so he gave the cymbals to Mike, and I said, sign him on as an endorser. I said, sign him on as an endorser. And then I flew Mike out to the photo shoot that year, and I put him on the front cover of Newsbeat with some other guys. That's the cover I wish I could show you. I don't have handy here. But it's a wraparound cover with a fold out, and I put him on there with Chester Thompson, Chad Smith, Michael Shreve, all these guys, Carmine. So I put new guys, up and coming guys, I put them with the big legends. So the new guys got validated by being with the big legends, and the big legends that were around a long time got validated as being cool because they were hanging out with the younger guys, right? So I got him on there and started building him as a star. Now, I said to David McAllister, I said, Mike, I think Mike Portnoy could be our Neil Peart. And when I went down to do a feature on Mike, interview him at his home, what was it? Oh, the living room. The end of the living room was all Modern Drummer Awards. I don't know how many. He had about 40 at the time. He posted a picture last week. I don't know how many he's got. He's got the walls filled, the walls going up the stairs.
Wow.
My whole thing was I wanted to get somebody who wasn't coming from Zildjian or coming from Pisces. This was a Sabian guy. People only ever known Mike as Sabian.
So Sabian Mike played only Sabian as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
David Aberzies, I've just discovered him as well, in a bar in Germany. And he needed cymbals, and he was a wonderful guy. I loved the guy. So I said to him, would you be interested in playing Sabian? And he said, sure. I said, where are you off to next? He says, we're off to New York. I says, great. I said, what are you doing there? He says, well, we're off to New York. We're going to do Saturday Night Live. I said, okay, I'll arrange. You can go to Manny's, or you can go to Sam Ash. They're across the street from each other on 48th Street. I said, you get whatever you want. It'll be cleared. You just tell them, Sabian. And so that's what he did. And he appeared on Saturday Night Live with Sabian and Zoom. So those were my.
This is just about around the time that Pearl Jam exploded. So it was perfect timing.
It was absolute perfect timing. And it was absolute perfect timing for Mike as well. Because right around that time, Dream Theater took traction, because they take traction in the media before they take traction big time live, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like Hillary Jones was at that shoot, the wraparound shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And I put her in there. She was great. I understand she's had some issues since, but that's neither here nor there. She was fabulous. She came to the photo shoot with her mother. She looked great. She was very personable. And I put her on the front cover with the guys. Nobody knew who she was. And I like that, because then people go, who's that? Annika Nilles. Nobody knew who she was. Suddenly it's Annika. Everybody wants to know who Annika is. And deservedly so. As it was with Hillary. She was playing with Lee Ritenour and people like that. She's a fine player. But a couple of weeks after, a few weeks after Newsbeat came out, she phoned me. She said, Wayne, she said, it's unbelievable. Me being on that Newsbeat cover, she says, all the drum companies are phoning me. They want to give me drums. Stick companies are phoning me. Head companies are phoning me. Wow. She said, the phone's ringing off the hook just because you put me on Newsbeat. So that reminded me the power of that publication.
Yeah.
The industry was looking at Zildjian tried to make a Newsbeat. Peisty tried to make a Newsbeat. They didn't get it. They used it as a means to promote themselves. And Newsbeat wasn't a means, was a means to engage the audience and empower the audience. So when they walked into a store, they go, I want that, and I want that because it's a high pitch, it's this thickness, it's exactly what I need. And away they go. So
wow, that's so many amazing informations and so many great stories, Wayne.
And there is so much more.
Wayne,
we should meet again. We should hang again.
We should do part 2. But before we go, tell us about Vinnie Paul.
Oh, about Vinnie Paul. I would love to have. I did a feature on him in Newsbeat, and I don't. Just give me a second here. And we could talk about stuff like that next time as well, Dave. Mm-hmm. Vinnie Paul. Okay, so I did an interview with Mike in New Jersey at his home, and then I did an interview with Vinnie. So I fly down to Dallas or Houston, wherever it was, and he lives in between the two. I forget the name of the place. Arlington, maybe. Arlington, Texas, maybe that's where it's called. So he had a photographer he wanted to use. I forget the guy's name. I should remember it. He was a top rock photographer. And he wanted to use that photographer. So I said, okay, so we'll use him. So I fly in and I go to the hotel, and then I catch a cab to this place. And I remember drove up a little cul-de-sac, and the taxi driver stops, and he says, "Is this it?" And I look out the window, and I figured, yeah, this looks like it's going to be it. So I get out, and I've got my backpack with me, my stuff. I've got to remember this now. Okay, so there's a long driveway up, and I start up the driveway, and there's a lot of empty beer cans. That was the giveaway. Empty beer cans everywhere. There were empty beer cans, and halfway up, I think there was like a basketball net. And as I get to the top of this hill, there's like an Art Deco style house, this white house, an Art Deco style. And as I walk up, I get to the top. The Art Deco house is on the back, on my left. I'm seeing the back side of it, with the curves and the windows and all that. And on my right, there's an aluminium boat, like a little fishing boat, and it's on a trailer. So I walk over and look at that. It's full of water, and it's full of beer cans. Like it's just the whole boat is full of beer cans. And so the house is actually up on a little hill, looking down on its neighbors. So I noticed there's a little wall. So I walk around the wall looking down to these other houses. And once again, in the woods, it's all beer cans. It's just beer cans everywhere. And so I turn and I look at the house, and it's nice. It's Art Deco. It's kind of long and narrow. And he had, what did he have? He had like, he had gargoyles. Do you know what gargoyles are?
Yeah, gargoyles.
Like in churches now?
Yeah.
There were like all these gargoyles around the doorway. It was kind of like Halloween. I had gargoyle door knocker, and to the right of the door, I walked over there. There was a big white limousine, like an 18-foot, 20-foot limousine. I knock on the door, and there's Vinny. He swings open. He's got shorts on. He's got a rung of keys hanging down. His T-shirt is bandana. He's like, Wayne, come on in, and he's got the photographer right there. So I'm introduced. So I step inside the door, and inside the door is like a little raised area. So I'm on a raised area, and to the right, there's a walkway to the right, and there's stairs on the left. So as soon as I walk in, I'm looking down on the living room, and the house is actually quite narrow. Like it's not very deep at all. And the windows look out in the back garden. And so I turn to my right, and there are these full-size figures of, oh God, who is there? Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton. Oh, who is the singer? Anyways, Christina Aguilera.
Okay.
And there was somebody else, I can't remember who, but there were these full-size photographic cutouts. And Bill Clinton, somebody put a sombrero on his head. And so we go down the steps, and it's really weird because the kitchen is like old style, like 1950s old style kitchen.
Okay.
Maybe that's what he grew up with, and he wanted memories of home. And so there's some rooms off there, and I'm going to the living room. On the living room table was a stack of porn magazines. and he had a sound system, and the sound system was like big speakers you'd use for a gig.
Okay. Wow.
And there was a little room off to the left, and it was like an arched room. It was wonderful, actually, and it was all windows, like Art Deco, and it went up. I think it went up to 2 floors, and he had a Christmas tree on the right, a decorated Christmas tree. He says, "Look," he says, "I usually get home so late after touring, I don't have time to put up a tree." So he said, "I've got the Christmas tree up all year round," and he had a couple of jukeboxes. And he had Hughes Thrall, Glenn Hughes and Pat Thrall, killer album. Do you know that album?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, killer. So he put that on for me through the sound system. So it's kind of like having the band right there in the living room because it's so effing loud, right? It's like, how you been? All right. And then what did he do? He had a couple of rooms. He took me upstairs. He had a room where they had games. He had a pool table, and he had electronic games. And from there, he showed, it's all windows all around. So he showed me, he said, down below, there was a swimming pool. And the swimming pool was in the shape of I don't drink, but it's Crown Royal. Crown
Okay.
Royal,
Like a whiskey bottle.
like a whiskey bottle, and he had the whiskey bottle painted on the bottom under the water. And so he said there was a game, a hockey game, and the winners had come to his house, and they brought the Stanley Cup, I think it was.
Yeah.
And he said, you know, it was all the groupie chicks and all everybody, the whole place was just rocking. He said the whole place was just rocking. So now somebody got the idea that throw the Stanley Cup out the window into the pool, but it didn't quite make it. And boom, and then it went in. And he says, you got all these naked chicks, and everybody's having a great time. And then he takes me around, and we go by a bookcase. A bookcase built into the wall. He says, "Hey Wayne, check this out," and he pushes the bookcase, and the bookcase turns. So you go into this room, and it's all
a secret room.
It's a secret room. So it's all porn pictures all over the wall. He says, so if anybody wants to make out, they can come up here, you know. And then he took me into and then right next to that, there's a little music room where he had a drum set. And he had all sorts of gear. He says, "Yeah, so like Nikki Sixx, and you know, when Motley Crue come to town, you know, he's naming all these bands. They come down here, we jam, or you know, we got all the gear for them and stuff like that." It's hilarious. And he says, "You hungry?" And I said, "Yeah, well, kind of." He says, "Come on." And he says, so he takes me out, and he had a barbecue, and he did me up a sausage or something, like a bratwurst or something. And he was wonderful. I really, really liked him. When it's time for me to go back to the hotel, he and the photographer, they were going, well, I said, "Just call me a cab." And he said, No. He says, "You're my guest. I'm driving you back." I said, No. He says, "I'm driving you back, Wayne." So he goes out, and he pulls the limousine up in front of the door.
So he owned the limousine.
A big white limousine. I said, "What the hell are you doing with the limousine?" He said, "Well," he said, every weekend, he said, a friend of mine had a limousine, and I'd rent him as a driver, and I'd rent the limousine." He said, "It was costing me a fortune." So he said, "I figure I'd buy my own. I'd drive it myself." So
Che mitico.
so I said to him, I said, "Look, when I'd go to the Modern Drummer Festival, they'd have like a limousine pick me up at the hotel, and I'd get motion sickness in the back, right? So I'd always sit up front with the driver. So I said, I've got to sit up front first. So the photographer sat in the back, and on the way back to the hotel, he told me about how his mother was his biggest fan, and he was practically in tears because she had just recently died.
Oh, okay.
And he dropped me off at the hotel, gave me a big hug, and then the next I did the feature for Newsbeat, and then I think the next maybe the next time I saw him in person was at the NAMM show, and I was standing at the back of our booth. He came on the booth, and suddenly there was like 50 people around him, Sabian people and everybody around him, and he shook hands with a few, and then he pushed his way through, and he came over to me. I was just standing on my own, and he came over to me, and he gave me a big hug and said, "How are you?" You know, and that was the last I saw him. His business card, he had a little club. I think it's called the Cat Club.
Yeah, he has a strip club. He owns a strip club, something like that.
That's right. He owned a strip club, and his business card said, "Come on down and have an effing shot." Have a shot. He was that kind of guy.
Super cool.
Oh yeah. When I saw him at NAMM, his brother had recently been shot. That's right. Dan Bag had been shot. Daryl had been shot. And so when he came over, I said, "How are you?" He said, "I'm okay." And he gave me a big hug. That's the stuff that meant something to me. You know, is Chad did the same thing. I went to see Chad with the Chili Peppers, and he walked into the green room, and everybody's crowding around him. He came over.
Wow.
Wayne, how are you?
This means you did a great job, man. People.
So that means a lot. And I never really did anything. I never took him out to drinks. I helped get him hooked up with Glenn Hughes. I suggest they get together, and I send them some CDs and say, you guys got to get together. But yeah, there's little things like that, getting a call from Glenn thanking me for that. It's those little things that matter.
Wow.
So we should do this again. Like I said, there's so much more.
We will talk about it soon. So
Yes.
Wayne, again, Sergio, grazie mille. Wayne, thanks a lot. So I hope to talk to you very soon. And Wayne, let's keep in touch. Sergio will give you my contacts through Facebook or Instagram.
Right. And I said to Sergio, the drumming world, more of the drumming world needs to know about Sergio. And you as well, I assume, Raphael,
Oh,
no, seriously, it's the drumming world, the industry, not just the drumming world of players, the industry.
Thanks.
The box into which the business goes, into which the branding goes, into which the marketing goes, into which all that stuff. It needs more people like you.
It means a lot.
People.
You
people could really help bring things up. I think that the answer to the woes, the problems that the industry has, in part, could be solved if they had more people like you and even me involved more.
Thanks a lot, Wayne. We will talk again pretty soon. So thank you very much. Thank you, Wayne. Thanks, Sergio. Thanks to everybody who's been following this, and take care and talk soon. Ciao, Wayne. Ciao, Sergio.
Good evening.
Ciao, guys.
Ciao.